Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is a game I really like. Yeah, we already been through the story of Dragon Ball multiple times. You know, I can go over the entire decade of games, but honestly that would take me forever. And I also don't feel like doing it because I'm way too lazy. The point is that the recent games have actually been relatively decent. Recent as in I'm talking Xenoverse, both 1 and 2, and of course Fighter Z, which are possibly like the only 3 games that I actually played recently. Well, now I can add Dragon Ball Z Kakarot to that list as Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which I just realized how long of a title and tongue twister that can possibly be, saying that 3 times over, is actually a pretty fantastic game. If I had to rate it, I'll actually give it an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. It gets that point higher just for being complete fan service, but honestly, as a game, I'll probably rate it like 7 or 7.5. Mostly because it lacks like any real depth to it. Even though that it manages to bring something new to the series as far as actually having a decent open world and actually letting you traverse to these different areas and moving around at different places. Sort of like this Witcher 3 thing in terms of you being able to go through different areas by viewing your map and then fast traveling to them. It's a pretty cool concept which has definitely been dabbled into before, such as with the Legacy of Goku or Dragon Ball Z Infinite Worlds, but with this they managed to actually pull it off really well. And if anything can work like an RPG, it's definitely Dragon Ball. As far as the power-ups and leveling up systems and characters getting new abilities. You know, if anything, Dragon Ball was already like an RPG come to life. So you already would think that it would fit into that world. Well, how come so many of these Dragon Ball games suck at doing? You know, besides Xenoverse, of course, would manage to definitely pull off the RPG element, and this game does pull from Xenoverse as well as from other games like the older Tenkaichi games. But this manages to take that, polish it, and update it. In all honesty, I'm really impressed. Down to the voice acting, even though I feel as though the Japanese voice actors probably put in a little bit more effort than the English voice actors. Now, don't get me wrong, Dragon Ball was actually one of the first animes I've, love the English dub for. There are some other animes that I watched in an English dub, but didn't really met the standards of Dragon Ball, at least not back in the day. Now we have gotten a lot better with the translations and the official voice acting. I actually think I said that backwards. But what DBZ Kakarot lacks in depth, it definitely makes up in charm. It fully embraces the Dragon Ball story as well as the world, the lore, even going around and getting collectibles as you can expand your encyclopedia knowledge of the Dragon Ball past and some things that even happen in the future. Things such as Goku and Piccolo going to learn how to drive and get their driver's licenses is in the game. And it's something that was a filler in the anime, but for them to embrace that time period gap where you actually don't know what was going on in between that. Sure, in the anime or even in the manga, they would jump a few years and say like, oh, this amount of months have passed, this amount of years have passed. So you always kind of wonder like, what was going on between those years? Oh, okay, so yeah, there's definitely a little dialogue box that says that, oh, so-and-so trained, but you never actually seen that unless you saw the fillers, some of the fillers in the original Dragon Ball Z run, and even that was cut out when Dragon Ball Kai was created. But I always kind of liked that filler. It never really went on for too long, such as Naruto. And it actually added something to the story rather than the characters sort of just forgetting about it, and even made references to it later. And the game does that. When you're actually doing these downtimes, such as even at the beginning of the game when you go looking for apples and fishing with Gohan, it's just a time to get to know these characters and get some insight into how they are outside of battles. And that's actually a fun thing to learn. I learned a lot more about how Piccolo was going through this transformation, is how he was getting closer to Gohan and actually starting to see him as a son. These are things that can help a story and characters that can actually flesh out the game a lot more, rather than people just saying, oh, it's just the same Dragon Ball story before, we've seen it 100 times. Yeah, true. It's more or less like Peter Parker getting bitten by the spider and becoming Spider-Man, or Uncle Ben dying, or Batman's parents being killed. It's just something that you've already seen already. It's something that we've been through. And if you can put a spin on it or add something to that, then that can actually reinvent the story. My criticisms aren't that high as far as I wish that some of the lip syncing was actually linked up a little bit better. Although trust me, it's 90% better than what we got in something as Xenoverse and Fighter Z. Good lord. But it can still be improved rather than it being rushed like the older games were. But I have to say, this time around, it does feel like they actually put some work into this. As far as the dialogue go, the animations, the attacks, it definitely could have expanded on the basic attack. I would have liked it if it was a way to where you can actually push your control stick into the direction that you want the character to attack, then maybe they'll have different attacks going on. That's something that they could have done or they could have added on, but we'll see what the DLC stuff brings. But for now, I really enjoyed it. I think DBZ Kakarot is a very good addition to the DBZ game sagas, I guess you can say. Not DBZ Sagas, the game. And it's amazing how they can keep me coming back to buying these games, even though I know exactly what's going to happen and what's going on. Although, come on, you could have added Battle of the Gods, at least. Well, that's all I got. I'm actually going to go back to playing a little bit more. So until then, I see you guys in the next video. I want you all to take care. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. If you didn't, hey, that's fine. I'm actually very tired while I'm recording this, so I'm about to head out and go play some more. Bye.